Now, investors have their attention fixed on today's 265.5 billion naira Tbills auction. Meanwhile, the 2038 and 2053 papers are recording improved offers post the 2.5 trillion naira bond auction, which was held earlier this week. Emmanuel Orji, Treasury Team Member at Axis Bank, joins me now for more on market updates. Emmanuel, thank you so much for joining us on the show today. Let's start off the conversation with the results we saw from the 2.5 trillion naira bond auction this week and juxtapose that to the 1 trillion naira Tbills auction we had seen earlier. Yes, talk points have talked about these unprecedented volumes and whether or not the market can absorb this. But let's talk about the details here and how foreign portfolio investors really participated this time around.
Hi, thank you for having me. So at the bond auction being held on Monday, we saw the DMO offer 2.5 trillion. This is a historical auction, particularly given the size of that offer. But at the end of the day, we saw just a subscription of 1.9 trillion, where the DMO ended up selling 1.49 trillion on the 7-year and the 10-year, which is the 2031 and 2034. We saw stock rates close at 18.5 and 19% on both maturities. At the auction participation, we saw a bulk of this participation on largely seen from the domestic side, because it seems like the offshore participants has been skewed largely towards the short tenor paper, particularly the NCB auction. So we didn't see as much participation from the offshore guys that we in the bond auction that we saw in the NCB auction.
Sure.
Post bond auction, we've seen these papers to trade around the same level, particularly given the fact that a lot of investors, local investors, are on the sidelines ahead of the MPC meeting, which will be a major detector for how sentiment plays out in the next couple of weeks.
Well, foreign portfolio investors are definitely weighing their risks involved here when we are looking at these volumes and their preference for the one-year T-bills. But let's talk about today's auction as well now, expected subscription rates. Okay,
so for the NTB auction being held today, the DMO the CBN is going to offer roughly 265 billion. So you can see that this is a significant reduction from the previous auction where they offered 1 trillion. So we should expect to see rates trade or close lower than the 19% previously seen, particularly given the fact that the offer is largely reduced at this auction.
And now, wrapping up the conversation, talking about some of the developments we've had in the FX space as well now. The weakness still persists in the local currency, but yesterday we saw the slight appreciation to about that 1,551 naira against the greenback. Let's talk about how the currency is trading today and what we should expect down the line the rest of this week.
Okay, so for the FX markets, we continue to see some demand pressures on that front. Obviously, dynamics of that market largely skewed towards the demand side. But however, this week we're expecting a CBN intervention given the pressures in that market. We saw them intervene last week with an intervention of roughly $140 million. So we expect to see a similar size being offered being sold in the NAFTA market this week. So we expect that to reduce the demand pressure. But nevertheless, these are just short-term measures that the CBN are using, or short-term tools the CBN are using to maintain those rates at current levels. But nevertheless, the pressure of the increased demand persists in the market.
Well, a whole lot is on the table of the Central Bank of Nigeria as the MPC also gradually inches closer, especially for the fact that we're also seeing the probe into the ways and means and much more. But we'll leave the conversation here for now, Emmanuel. Thank you so much for your time on the show today. That was Emmanuel Orji, Treasury Team Member at Axis Bank.